Jim Wollbrinck, who is a kind of a local celebrity in our world here in Cal Nevada, West Coast. AWWA, American Water Works Association. Anytime I have a question, I call Jim. When it comes to emergency management, has been with the San Jose Water Company. He's recently retired for over 25 years. I'm not mistaken, right? Over 25 years, correct?
Yeah, just over 25 years, a total of about 36 in the water industry.
Wow, 36 years of water industry, and he was a water distribution supervisor at one point. This guy has done it all in the water business. So that's why I wanted to have him for over a year now, but I just haven't got a chance to ask him to come and talk to us and talk to my listeners. So I wanted to thank you for being here, Jim. And also, I also want to announce he won a Lifetime Achievement Award in the water section of our association called the Fuller Award. Am I not correct?
You're correct. I was actually down in Costa Rica on a vacation that was long planned, and I got an email from one of our Cal Nevada section leadership there, Conrad Tona from Redding, and he's also one of our regional chairs for CalWarn. It said, "Congratulations." That was all that it said. And I had absolutely no clue what was going on. So that started.
And then I text you. Remember I text you? Remember I text you and you were like, "What?"
yeah.
That was too funny.
It was a surprise and definitely an honor. A group of individuals that have received that award that I admire. Their work is extensive, and to be included in that for the little that I've done, it's just overwhelmed.
Yeah, no. So congratulations on that, Jim. All right, so my listeners are water utilities or wastewater utilities. There's sometimes it's private industry, but mostly water, wastewater. What are some of the security and emergency management issues that water utilities are kind of going through today? And I know wastewater is kind of it jumps over, right? Because they have to kind of do some things the same. So is there anything you can any advice you can give to them?
Yeah, there's several things to look at. If you're a water utility, whether it's water or wastewater, one of the things you need that at some point in time, it's not if, it's when, you're going to need that mutual aid, mutual assistance. In California, CalWarn was started back in the 90s. And then after the Katrina hurricane, it became a national program. So it started in California, Texas, and Florida took up and started their own Texas Warn and Florida Warn. And they became probably more proficient at it because of the hurricanes that they regularly receive. CalWarn was kind of in a little bit of a lull, but there's a core group. Myself is one, Gary Sturdivant, Kelly Hubbard, Ray Reardon, Steve Dennis. We kind of, in a way, resurrected it. And so if you're a water utility or a wastewater utility, you want to belong to one of the mutual aid, mutual assistance organizations. CalWarn is one of them. There's Rural Water Association, the California Utilities Emergency Association, but you find the one that works best for you and you become a member. We've responded as CalWarn to several incidents over time with a lot of success. And basically we just match the need with the supplier, and they coordinate it. And if you do everything right, you qualify for reimbursement from the state and FEMA. But the main thing is to get your community back up and running. So for the water community, really the things to be looking at right now, one is that disaster. And I know at some point in time, we'll kind of talk about some of the disasters that hit California, like the fires, like the most recent Ferndale earthquake. Caused some damage up there, and CalWarn responded to that. But I've always planned at my time at San Jose Water, what is that next thing that's going to get you? There's an author out there I recommend to everyone, Jim Collins. He's written several books. I think you could consider, and read through all of those books, it'd be like an MBA. But in his one of his most recent books, Great by Choice, he talks about those companies that planned on and became great. And one of the things he talks about is productive paranoia. And it's basically the companies that do best are looking for that event or those things that are out there that gonna kill them, that are gonna really ruin their business, and they plan for it. On the water side, we know that we're in earthquake country here in California, and if you're in other parts of the nation, you've got the winter storms and the hurricanes. So we all have those threats that are out there. If you're a water utility, you need to be planning for those. And if you're a company that supports a water utility, you need to be partnering with them to know what they're going to be dealing with, and can you be there to help them. On the wastewater side, it's very similar. A lot of the wastewater utilities, they have the terracotta and the cement pipe. One of the lessons learned, I always try and gather lessons from other events, but Christchurch earthquakes that happened, it actually changed the topography where the sewer system had to have lift stations put in, and because where it was just flowing downhill, all of a sudden flowed to a point, and it lifted, and they had to get up over that. And then for us on the potable water side, we've got to coordinate with all of those wastewater systems, because if we get our system back up and running and people start washing, showering, flushing toilets, and the sewer system isn't ready for it, that water's coming up in somebody's home, somebody's business, or up in the street, and it is a big health concern. So I think for water utilities, it's evaluating those threats, knowing what's out there, how that can cascade, and be planning and working with others. I know it's hard at times because everyone's budgets are tight, but it pays big dividends when things happen. One of the biggest threats out there, and maybe we'll talk a little bit about it later on, but it's the cyber. Cyber is one of the real key things that all utilities need to be looking at, making sure that their SCADA systems are protected, their networks, their data. Several utilities have been hit with phishing attacks. When I was at San Jose Water, we were hit with one, and we were in a way ready for it. It did hurt us a little bit, but it didn't cripple us, and that's what utilities have to be looking for.
Yeah, I that's interesting. I mean, you came from a larger organization, San Jose Water Company, one of the biggest private, water distributors out there. What advice would you have for the little guy, the guy who's like, at a mid-size or small size water distribution supervisor? He probably wears multiple hats. They don't have an emergency manager. How does that guy get through all these? What would you suggest?
I would suggest doing similar to some of the utilities both in Northern California and Southern California. They've put together these coalitions. So if I can't afford my own emergency manager, for instance, in Orange County, they have WEROC, Water Emergency Response of Orange County. They combine together and have somebody that assists them, as I think there's 8 or 9 different water utilities, might even be more, but they have an emergency manager that works with all of them to coordinate their activities. That's great for sharing resources. If somebody had a boil water notification, needed sample takers, or a power outage and need operators, they can share resources, but they don't each have their own emergency manager. They may have people within that follow the ICS and the SIMS, Standardized Emergency Management System, or NIMS, which is the National Incident Management System. And so instead of having to have my very own emergency manager, I'm one of a few utilities that use that same resource. In the East LA area, in the San Bernardino area or Riverside, you have ERNI, Emergency Response of Inland Empire. And then in Northern California, you have BASIC, the Bay Area Emergency Security Information Collaborative. So these collaboratives can come together and share a resource. And if you're a smaller utility, you're probably not as, the larger utilities have just much more infrastructure to protect. So an emergency manager for that utility makes a lot of sense. But for a smaller utility, you could, form a collaborative or find somebody that does emergency management, a former fire or former emergency manager that maybe could help you part-time. You're still going to have to put the work in. You're the expert on your system. You know the ins and outs. They can help you by asking the right questions and then work with you to find the gaps, fill those gaps. And you may never use it, but if you're prepared for it, at least you have a rough plan of what you need to do. And now with the America's Water Infrastructure Act passing in 2018, all water utilities have to have an emergency response plan and do a risk and resiliency assessment. So that's really pushed a lot of utilities to do that. How many of them did a really good job of it? I couldn't tell you, but those that did a good job definitely are prepared. Those that just did the minimum, they probably certified okay and are good to go. But at some point in time, the way these kind of regulations and laws progress, at some point in time, there's probably going to be an audit process tied to it, similar to what Division of Drinking Water has on the water quality side, where every year you have to take your provide what you're doing in the area of protecting the water quality for your system and then producing a report. I could at some point in time envision that happening. So the more work you put up front now, the dividends it's going to pay at some point down the road, whether it's the disaster or regulation.
Okay. Wow, this is good stuff. This is really good stuff, Jim. And well, we're talking more about the emergency management side, but what about the security side? What about, like, you touched a little bit on cybersecurity? What can utilities do to make, to secure their networks?
Yeah, I would. That gets into a little area that is outside my expertise, the cyber side. But again, AWWA has an extensive amount of resources. So I would start there. If you're any size utility, you probably, if you don't have the internal staff doing it, you have somebody that's maintaining your network. You want to make sure that they are qualified through AWWA. Go to their website, search cybersecurity. There's several documents in there that have both checklists and good information. I would use that to talk to my network people, my SCADA people, if you're a big enough utility to have SCADA, and most really are now. I would review that with them and make sure that you're at a level, and a lot of it's some of the just basic stuff, not sharing passwords. If you can have dual authentication, so you put in your password and you get a text or something on your phone. There's a lot of basic things that you can do. There is at the Homeland Security level with CISA, the Critical Infrastructure Security Agency. They're working on a lot of documents and resources. In Idaho, we have Idaho National Labs. You can petition them. They will actually do an audit on your system and try and penetrate it and give you information as to exactly where your flaws and vulnerabilities are. And then you work with your network people to patch those holes. So cyber is really the key, mainly because you could be penetrated already and just not know it. And there's a bad actor that's just in your system, just watching what's going on and just waiting for that right opportunity to affect you. So cyber, I think, really is one of the big ones. What we're seeing in California, at least, especially in most of the metropolitan areas, is a lot of issues around homeless. And that's something that we just don't have the bandwidth or in a way, our main responsibility is providing water. But homeless issues, and then what that leads to with the metal theft, breaking into stations, stealing copper wire, all of that has created a huge security component. In my tenure at San Jose Water, the first half of my career, we had no problems with metal theft and so forth. But in the last, say, definitely the last 5 years, upwards of a decade, we have started having some serious issues, and that can take a system down. And so you take several wells out and pump stations because of metal theft and those issues. Then all of a sudden now the disaster hits. Can you really meet the needs of your community to provide water? So the physical security at San Jose Water, just before I left, we had actually split my duties, which were emergency management, security, and business continuity, split that up so that there was a security manager dedicated to working all the security issues, because it had gone from, say, 10-15% of my time to 50% plus of my time.
Wow. And
I think that's something that water utilities are going to continue to see as a problem going forward. So the physical and the cyber are both there.
Yeah, I didn't realize how bad it was until we had a meeting with my security and emergency management committee, and they talked about it like for 15 minutes how the homeless were damaging all this stuff. I know Lisa out in the city of Sacramento, she said she had a bunch of instances where they would destroy stuff and create fires and stuff, and I was like blown away. And then they have to get the cameras right. All these cameras have to be in sync with one another, and they have to analyze the data to try to prevent stuff from happening again. So it was very interesting. I didn't realize the homeless created such a problem for water utilities.
Yeah, and it's growing. So it's not, at least at this point in time, it's not going away. Initially, we were, again, our basic group, Bay Area Emergency Security Information Collaborative, started prior to my coming into the emergency management and security area. It was initially called Bay Area Security Information Collaborative. It came from all of the risk and resiliency assessments after 9/11 that all the utilities had to perform. From that, San Jose Water developed a whole security program. Well, when you have new infrastructure, there's not a whole lot that you need to do with it. So all of that infrastructure was put in the 2004 to 2006 timeframe. Fast forward to about 2014, 2015, we're starting to see cameras fail on a monthly, if not weekly basis. They only have a certain amount of useful life. So part of what we ended up doing is really establishing a good asset management program. San Jose Water was in the process of doing an asset management program for all the assets. Well, let's pull security in there, because servers only last a a certain amount of time, whether they're the security application servers or camera servers, and then the cameras themselves. They're only good, just like most computers, for 5 to 7 years, maybe a little bit longer. But why not have a program where you're updating and upgrading that infrastructure before it fails? Because Murphy's Law is going to strike, and you're going to have an incident, and you're going to go to look at that camera, and you've got a blank image or a pixelated image, or something's happened to that camera that it's no longer working properly. If you're going to put in security programs, you want to make sure that you're looking at both the short term and the long term. And the long term is making sure that you have an asset management program in place for that infrastructure to keep it running properly. But because the threat is going to be there, I think, for a while, and you've really got to be prepared for it.
Yeah, very good points. Yeah, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of things on people's plates now that there wasn't before. So thank you for bringing that to the community attention. Do you know, I want to talk a little bit about the floods here in Northern California. If you could talk a little bit about that, how was it affected? What can utilities do to prepare for floods? Because, if you're reading the reports, they said there's going to be more of these in the future. So wanted to get your opinion on this.
Yeah, that is, if you're a utility, and a lot of utilities tend to have their wells located somewhat near a stream, just because you get natural percolation in those areas, and they tend to be your most productive well locations. So that, again, you got a good production from a well, that's great. You can serve a lot of people. But if you're in any kind of a low-lying area, you got to be prepared that station could flood. So again, at San Jose Water, we had planned for some of those types of events. We activated in 2017. There was flooding along the Coyote Creek. It actually flooded a few of our well fields along that corridor. But we were ready. We shut down the stations, actually had PG&E kill the power at the pole, so that any of the equipment wouldn't fry at the MCC. And then we had some cleanup and rebuilding to do in that area. But again, everything happened methodically, safely, and kept we knew where we could provide water, produce water, and we were able to keep everything going. So you want to coordinate with your local emergency management agency as a water utility, and make sure that you're getting the warnings if there is going to be a flood warning, and you can sign up for the National Weather Service texts that will update you on the current weather conditions and any type of flooding that can happen. But you want to be connected to the appropriate organizations, again, local, whether it's city or county emergency management. If you are in a flood control district, which I think most utilities and areas within the state have a flood control agency, you want to connect with them and be ready so that you are part of their notification, that if something is going to happen, we're lucky with storms and so forth. We have, if not weeks, we have days worth of notification that it's coming, so we can prepare. You want to do that. Earthquakes are different, but those floods, we can prepare. And then it's, how can you protect that facility? I don't know, maybe you're taking the MCC and you got it wrapped in plastic and sandbagged, and so it does not get affected. or you just know that you're going to have some rebuilding to do afterwards. A real one lesson learned, and again, I try and learn from different disasters. There was a fire during those key fire seasons in 2017 and 2018. There were two utilities in Lake County. One had a good program put together. They had plenty of insurance, and they came out getting 100% reimbursed for all of the damages and restoration that they had. Another wasn't prepared, didn't have things in place, and they struggled. I don't think they ever fully recovered. So that's you can never have too much insurance, especially as a small utility. But band together. If you can't do all of the planning yourself, work with your partners. Find a large utility that can assist you. But utilities will help each other, and so you want to really be prepared. Floods are one of those that you can plan for, and then have. I always have say a plan is great, but a plan without a checklist and exercise is nothing more than a doorstop. And the reason I say that is nobody's going to read the plan completely. You can require it, they may, but really when the disaster happens, it's either they've gone through an exercise and they have an idea of what they're going to do, and they have a checklist that says, here's the top 10 key things that you need to do, whether it's just before the event or during the event. So those are really some key areas for utilities to look at, and a lot of the utilities made it through pretty good in these last set of storms.
Yeah, that's crazy that the coordination is so important, especially when you're a small, mid-sized utility. Is there a lot of initiatives going on between cross utilities, like electrical, water, gas? Are there? I don't know if I'm not in that industry, so I'm not sure. But are there any agencies that are coordinating like that?
Not there's a few. They tend to be the big agencies, the SFPUCs, the East Bay MUDs, and partially because some of those utilities have both an electric and a water side, both East Bay MUD and definitely SFPUC. SFPUC through Hetch Hetchy, they have hydroelectric. They're providing electricity. I believe East Bay MUD is somewhat the same. So there's kind of a natural connection there. The connections are getting better. We at CalWarn, along with Cal Nevada section of AWWA and a lot of key utilities, we were requested by EPA to help them with their what they came up with. It's a power resiliency guide, and I can get you the web links for that, Isaac, so that you can post those at some point. But EPA did some great work. A lot of times, the national organizations come down and say, well, here, we've created this for you. That wasn't the case for this product. They came to the utilities and said, we want to have a power resiliency guide for water utilities. What does it need to look like? San Jose Water, Alameda County Water, Cal Water, Contra Costa, I think East Bay MUD. We all got together. Actually, Contra Costa has a former Cat Power person that worked for Cat Power. They came together and said, what does this guide need to look like? We helped them produce it, refine it, and it is a great document out there. Same thing with the PSPS. So those in California know that the PSPS is the Public Safety Power Shutoff. That's right conditions. Usually in the fall, you have low humidity, high temperature, high winds, and those things cross, and all of a sudden, and dry fuels, now you've got the makings of a major fire. And when those have all combined, there have been at least one, more often multiple large fires that have happened because of that. EPA again said, hey, we want utilities to be ready for these. What do we need to do? And we came together and put a PSPS guide together, and it has 100 and like blue sky. What do you need to do to be prepared should a PSPS happen? And then I think it's 24 hours or 48 hours in advance. The event happens. Then there's 48 hours after, and then 120 hours after. So what do you need to do and be prepared for at each of those points? And there's checklists that go along with it. They've proved very effective through all of the PSPS events for any utilities that has followed that. So those can be found on EPA's water website. And again, we can coordinate, get those links, get those out to anyone that's listening to your podcast, because those are very valuable for water utilities.
Yeah, it's so many things have happened. PSPS sounds like a thing of the past. It's like I can't remember the last time someone brought it up. But it's still really relevant. It's still very, very important, as you say.
It pretty much at least one every fire season. I think this last year was probably the lowest that we had, but I believe there were 2 or 3 events, and some areas may not have had them at all, but I know throughout the state there were at least 2 or 3, maybe even more PSPS alerts that came out. Utilities got to be prepared for that, and that's because we need that power, and if we don't have the power, we're not going to be producing water. Well, fire agencies, if they're working a fire near one of our utilities, they need that wet stuff to put on the hot stuff. Yeah. And if we can't produce it, that's an issue. And so to get back to your key point, in the past there hasn't been quite that connection with the water, power, telecom. Those are the 3. And if I was to add a 4th, and we may talk about that later, it's fuel. Because you look at the progression of your needs. If you don't have power, then all right, you're not getting it from the grid. Most utilities will have a generator. A lot of them have those now, especially with the PSPS. Well, what does the generator run on? It's running on diesel. Yeah, maybe some of them have natural gas, but most are diesel. All right, where's the diesel going to come from? And that's something that I've been working on since before about 2012 was emergency fuel planning. So that connection of the critical infrastructure is very important. It's not there yet, but it's getting there. And each year it gets a little bit better. When we did the PSPS guide, we actually had input from power companies. SoCal Edison was fantastic in that area. PG&E stepped up to the plate in Northern California, and they had representation there. When we did the training, both had representatives there. And because of the need for fuel for those generators, we actually had some participation from what's their association, kind of their mutual assistance, mutual aid organization for all those shiny trucks that you see taking fuel to the gas station or the corporate yard, the California Fuels and Convenience Alliance. And we've developed on the water side a very good relationship with them. Eventually, we hope to have an emergency fuel plan that whatever the disaster, there's good coordination between the water utilities and that fuel sector to make sure that we have the fuel that we need to recover, and really working for what we almost call critical infrastructure basic, the way water utilities come together and can coordinate. I would really like to see long-term vision is that happens for the water, power, telecom, fuel, that we're all coordinated and working a disaster so that we're maximizing the recovery for the greatest amount of public. Again, always looking at lessons learned. If you remember Superstorm Sandy going back several years, that was one of the lessons learned, one of the problems. Power came up in one area, water came up in another, and telecom in another. They weren't coordinated the way they needed to be to make sure that, hey, if there's a key hospital, water, power, and telecom are all working to make sure that that hospital has what it needs to be able to keep operating. So we're not there. I think the direction is headed that way, and hopefully we'll continue to make progress to see it 100% coordinated.
Yeah, I don't think anybody thinks about fuel. I think they forget about it. You know, the first time I heard about it as an emergency management issue is through CalWarn and guys like you, because you just don't think about fuel, but it's so important. If you don't have it in the grid, where are you going to get power? So totally understandable.
Yeah, and when it's an earthquake issue, you know, a lot of fuel is moved via pipelines, at least from the refinery to what they call the terminal. And at the terminal, that's where the shiny truck picks up that fuel and takes it to the gas station or to the corporate yard, you know, wherever it happens to be needed. But in an event like an earthquake, well, they've got to check their pipelines just like the water utility has to check theirs to make sure that there's no rupture, that we're not pushing fuel out into a community or, you know, somebody's field. We're just losing it. So, you know, and if the pipelines are damaged, well, now you've got to get the fuel from the refinery and get that to some kind of a distribution point. And for the water utility, if you're using X amount of fuel, because you're normally running an 8-hour day, when the disaster happens, all of a sudden your repair crews, your pump operators, your service inspectors, everybody's on a 24-hour cycle, usually 8 to 12-hour shifts. Your fuel goes from, say, let's just use round numbers, from 10,000 gallons a month to 20, 30,000 gallons. Well, where is that going to come from? And if you're in need of that fuel, you know, the hospitals, the police, fire, first responders, they all need it. And then any of your contractors that are coming in, or mutual aid, mutual assistance coming in to help you with your repairs, they need fuel. Where is that going to come from? From some of those lessons in 2014 for the Napa earthquake, the two things that they did that really helped them is they immediately ordered a lot of repair material, more full circle clamps, more transition couplings, and so what they thought they might need, they immediately put those orders in. And then the second thing that they immediately ordered was more fuel, getting that into their utility so that they could supply the mutual aid, mutual assistance coming in, plus the just additional miles that every one of their vehicles was going to drive.
Wow, crazy. So many things going on.
There's a lot, and there's a lot of innovation going on too.
Okay, talk about that. Go ahead.
Innovation in a couple areas. One, for CalWarn, we connected with a technology partner, the Alliance for Community Solutions. That's the way that we connect and communicate with all of our CalWarn members. You know, when I first started in the emergency management area working with CalWarn, I think we had maybe 250 CalWarn members. And then with all of the planning, the good work that we've done, along with the utilities that supported all of those efforts, because all of those utilities are CalWarn members, we were able to do some great responses for the Napa earthquake. In 2010, CalWarn responded to the El Mayor earthquake in Imperial County. So there was a lot of good work there. And then once the fires really hit, starting in 2017 on, there's been significant responses. So every year there's more responses and more that's being done. This year, because of supply chain issues, we've had utilities request 12-inch to 18, 24-inch valves and couplings and components. We even had a request not long ago just for corps that go into the main that supply water to the service that goes to the house. A utility needed them, couldn't find them, and was looking to see if someone in the CalWarn network could help. So it's out there, but we're able to reach our broad community by doing one mass communication, and it just sends a blast email out, says here's the request, here's what's needed, here's who to contact, and if you can help, contact them. In a few of the events, we had upwards of 10 to 15 utilities that reached back to be able to say, yeah, I can help you out, here's what we can do. So the website itself is becoming more functional, but we've also had our growing pains. Going from 250 to now we're close to 600 CalWarn members. Keeping that information accurate and up to date so that we can get a hold of somebody is an increasing challenge. But the Alliance for Community Solutions has some ways to automate that process, that on a quarterly basis, we can send out an email blast that says, click on the link, go in, check your information. If it's accurate, go to the bottom, click accept, and now we know that your information is updated. If the email bounces back, well, now we've got some work. We've got to contact somebody at that utility to make sure it's up to date. But doing that on a quarterly basis makes sure that we can get a hold of somebody that can help, or at least can respond and let us know that either they're okay, or that they can provide assistance, or they need assistance. During the Ferndale earthquake, that was one of the first things we did, was send a blast out to all of the utilities up in that area that were CalWarn members to say, give us an update on your status. How are you doing? There were about 4 or 5 utilities that weren't CalWarn members at the time of that event that immediately became CalWarn members because, again, they needed to connect. One of the utilities had some leak problems and wanted some leak detection equipment to figure that out. Sent the email blast out, and they were able to connect, get the equipment that they needed, and work towards recovery. So the website itself, being able to grow it, the network faster, instead of manually entering somebody in, having them go in, enter their information, click the button, it gets reviewed by the appropriate regional chair and accepted, and boom, now they're in. We're working on that, being able to map every CalWarn member so that you can go on the website as a CalWarn member, find the utilities around you, or at some point who's similar in size, maybe has the same type of SCADA software that you can connect with in advance. Call it kind of the emergency management dating application. You fill out your profile, somebody else fills out their profile, and now 2 utilities can connect because of their similarities and can be there for each other when that disaster happens. So that technology component, we're really working to improve. Another area, somebody came to us with some technology using, they call it VIDAR and LIDAR, to do dam assessments so that you have here's my baseline, here's what my dam looks like now, and then after a seismic event, in most cases, where you're mapping that infrastructure, they fly over it, they do the second image, and now you can overlay the two to find out where there's anomaly. Do you have some sloughing in the toe of the dam, or a bulge in that dam? But something that is done much safer than having surveyors try and work around a dam that could be compromised, but also doing it in a very rapid response mode, so that you have your information in advance. The event happens, Civil Air Patrol and the group fly the dam, get the data, bring it back, dump it. You can fly over, dump it to the Utility Emergency Operations Center, do the comparison. Now, what may have taken several days to try and figure out, you've got in less than 12 hours, and you know the situation for that dam. We think that that's going to be huge and very powerful, because we know with the San Andreas and the Hayward Fault, they're going to go at some point. They've both hit their 150, roughly 150 year, 100 to 150 year cycle of a major earthquake. And should that happen, there's several communities and several dams that are going to be affected. So we think that that's an area that's really important. And then, like we've talked, emergency fuel planning. Emergency fuel planning is just in its basis. I would venture to say there's barely a handful of water utilities that have emergency fuel plans, and none of those fuel plans are tied to the county. If they're not tied to the county, you can have ordered fuel, and you have it hit the county line, and the sheriff's office through the County Office of Emergency Services can take that fuel and move it anywhere they want. So if you're not part of a county-wide emergency fuel plan, you've got issues. So I mean, I know that's a lot that we've covered, and it is, because it is so extensive, but who knows, at some point, maybe as we're developing some of these programs, they could be podcasts just in and of themselves for some of your members.
Yeah, and we didn't even touch on wildfire. That's another huge issue. Wildfire is maybe we can do another episode on wildfire, because I know we're running out of time here. But wow, just such amazing, really valuable information. I think for anybody, even if you are a big utility, there's always stuff that like the field management thing you brought out, and also the innovation that's happening now. A lot of people are just not, they're in their little bubble and they're doing their routine. Sometimes they don't know what's going on in the outside world. So really good stuff, Jim.
Yeah, and that's really where the power of the associations can come in. Cal Nevada section, some of the work that can be done there. Not every utility has to do it just on their own. Get together through the committee that you chair. Those can be projects that can be worked on. CalWarn, we've got a great partnership between Cal Nevada section of AWWA and CalWarn. Let's maximize our connection, our areas of mutual concern, and I think we can do some great planning that just the utility themselves can just get the benefit from. They don't have to do it all themselves. They've got the template. They just have to really refine it for their utility.
Yeah, very, very good. Okay, well, I don't want to take too much of your time. We're kind of up, and I don't want to go over an hour. So I just wanted to thank you, Jim, not only for coming onto my show here, and also, what you do for the community, the water community. I know that everybody kind of sees you as a local expert, local celebrity. So we're thankful to have you here in California, Nevada section.
I'm happy to work with you. I mean, just the the work that your product has, where it's helped. When I was at my time at San Jose Water, we used
Oh, sure.
used your product quite a bit for certain areas. So again, it's a community that tries to help each other, and the slogan for CalWarn is water utilities helping water utilities. That's what we do, and that's just kind of again, the power of the water community through the associations like Cal Nevada Section and CalWarn. We've done some great work, and I think there's a lot of good work out there that we will be doing.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, well, thank you for coming on the show, Jim. Appreciate you.
All right. Hey, thanks a bunch.